Don McLean is a Grammy Award honoree, a Songwriter Hall of Fame member, and his history-making iconic smash hit, American Pie, resides in the Library of Congress, National Recording Registry, and was named a top 5 song of the 20th century by the Recording Industry of America. And his catalog of songs has been recorded by Madonna, Garth Brooks, Josh Groban, even Drake and Weird Al Yankovic, and of course the king himself, Elvis Presley, and many others, and Don McLean has sold over 50 million records. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, celebrating the 50th anniversary of American Pie, recorded a version of the song with a cappella group, Home Free, and he wrote the American Pie The Fable children's book. And with the new film documentary, The Day the Music Died, is out now and is a definite must-see. One thing for sure, Don McLean is not slowing down. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the legend, the icon, the master of the American musical story, the one and only Don McLean. Welcome to the
Thank you
show.
for that. What an introduction. Thank you so much.
Well, Don, I have been literally playing American Pie and all of your other songs literally on repeat since I watched your film documentary, which is absolutely
Wow.
stellar.
Gee, it was a community effort. It was Spencer Proffer, Kurt Webster, myself, and of course the movie filmmaker Mark Morman really made that movie, but we all put our 2 cents in and contributed to it. But Mark Morman is the man who made the movie, but he allowed us to get involved, and because I have a particular connection to the subject, I told them I would only say if I didn't like something, that I would basically leave them alone because they know what they're doing, and it's even the last time I saw it had changed quite a bit from the time before. um, yeah, a lot of nice things were done and added, and there's some lovely string work in the movie also, which was done by a guy that works with Mark. I don't know his name, I'm sorry to say, but nice, gives it a little elegance. So this was the first time that the entire story was told as to how I got around to doing this and what the circumstances were in the country. And it opened the door, therefore, for me to sit down with the guitar and really talk about the lyrics, what I was thinking of. And it's been 50 years, and I'm sure I was thinking of a lot of other stuff, but I forgot it. But there were a number of things later on that I remembered as well. So yeah, I did my best to talk about it and to tell what I was thinking.
Well, your song American Pie takes the listener on a roller coaster of America from the 1950s into the end of the 1960s. But there is something about American Pie that makes it one of the most timeless songs. Why is that?
Well, the record, the chorus, the melody, the words, all that made it into a successful recording, but the song is written in a timeless way. It's written like a fable or like some sort of a myth. And I wanted to get that quality in the song because America is a myth. It's a big, big, powerful country. And, it's funny because we think about America in terms of a lot of the mistakes that we've made, and we've certainly made plenty, but we forget all the great stuff and the great heart that the people have. You just have to look at, New York City after 9/11 and the way the city responded so nobly and bravely to what happened. But there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I hope people will go back to the 60s and ask about JFK and Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy and others, and ask about 9/11. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered about these things.
Yeah, I agree. Because as I watched the documentary, The Day the Music Died, ladies and gentlemen, it's out now on Paramount Plus, so you can watch it. And also the song American Pie. I mean, when you wrote the song, and I loved when you brought it up about the documentary, you were taking us line by line and telling us what you were thinking. When you wrote this song, did you know in your heart that you had a hit song?
I'd never had a hit song, so I didn't know what a hit was. All I knew is I had a really good album. That was what I was after. I think Vincent, even if it had been, if that had been the title of the album, Starry, Starry Night, Vincent would have gone to the top 10 without American Pie. So there were, in those days, there was a lot of room on the charts for slow ballads, like, Killing Me Softly and these kinds of, so Yesterday, songs like that.
Now, over the last 50 years, American Pie continued to hit the charts in every decade. What has surprised you the most about its longevity?
I just really don't understand it, but it seems to be a song that people value and that they like to use. And it makes a kind of a statement. And believe me, with this movie, this song is coming back bigger than it ever was. I mean, it's going to be humongous. It's been sort of late waiting, for this moment. And I think the story in the movie is a story that America can use now. I think it's a good story for us to realize, how much music means to us, how much we have to struggle through so many things, and even personally in the movie, how much I had to struggle to get this thing made. The producer didn't like me, the guys couldn't play the songs. I was surrounded by faint praise everywhere, and I didn't care. I knew what I wanted and I was going to get it. And I had to fight everybody. And then it was 8.5 minutes long, and the record company went out of business. I mean, I'm telling you, it was it was a lot of things.
Well, I think good things come to those who wait, but I think for all of us as fans of American Pie, I'm glad you never gave up to get that song recorded. And as I watched the documentary, and ladies and gentlemen, seriously, this is one of the best music documentaries you will ever see. And I've seen plenty of them. This one rates
Thank
at the
you.
top. And
Thank you so much for saying that. I'm very proud of it.
well, Don, I love the way that you broke down the song line by line. I love to hear about, like you had just said, the struggle of getting the song recorded. And when I go back, even again, before our interview today, I played American Pie. I played Vincent. One of my all-time favorite songs from you is actually Castles in the Air. And because they're just all beautiful songs. But when it comes to American Pie, you can literally hear people across the country coming together to sing it. And as I was watching the documentary, I think one of the elements of that was when you found out that Garth Brooks sang American Pie at all of his concerts. But in 1997, he held the concert in New York Central Park, had you come out on the stage to sing American Pie. What was it like to hear over 500,000 people sing along with you?
Well, like you said, I had been hearing from the 80s for about 10 years. And each time I would hear about Garth, they would say he was playing bigger and bigger places. So he was growing all the time, getting more fans and having more hits and whatever. And then I heard he was going to do this thing in New York. Everybody heard about this. And then a fax came over my fax machine back in fax days, and we had faxes. And it said he wanted me to be on the show. And I just about died. I said, well, I don't know if I belong on a show like this, but if he wants me, I'll do it. So talked on the phone with him. We made a little plan, for he would sing this and I would sing that, whatever. He introduces me. I come out. The plan goes out the window. Okay. I just went up and said, let's sing it again. And we start singing it. And then I think I sang a verse or two and a couple of choruses, and that was the end. And then Garth takes over and has the audience sing it and everything else. But he is so magnanimous and generous with his praise, and his even saying that singing that song that night was the crowning, jewel of his career. I thought that was really very nice of him.
Yeah, when I was watching the documentary and I was paying very close attention to every second of that film, and as it moved along, and to tell the story about the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly and Richie Valens, and just seeing it intersect with your song American Pie. What was it like singing your song American Pie at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa?
Well, they call that the day the music died now. I didn't have anything to do with that. I think they mentioned in the movie a certain disc jockey started to do that. We who love Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens, and we who are obsessed with this tragedy, and I suppose I certainly was one of them, even though I was only 13 or 14 years old. I had this obsession about this, and I wanted to know more. It was very personal, and a number of other wonderful artists have died, young, in plane crashes and car crashes and God knows what, and it hasn't done what this did to me. And I carried it with me for so long. And when I didn't really know what to do with it, but I knew when I decided to write this American song, this American dream, whatever you want to call it, the first part of the song just came to me, and suddenly I had Buddy Holly beginning this song. I thought, I've got something here. I finally captured him, the poignancy of the feeling. That's why the first part of the song has got to be beautiful. It's dramatic. It sets up the rest of the song because of this sad thing that happened. I had it, and I'm fairly good dramatist when it comes to music. I know, I know I use a lot of devices in my music and on stage even to reach people, and sometimes it works better than others, but this worked out right, and I chose the right producer, even though he didn't think I had any talent and he didn't like my songs very much. He just basically said he needed a job, and it took a while for me to get through to him that, well, maybe you need a job, but you're going to do this job the way I want it, because this is my record and it's going to be the way I want it, and I don't care, and we had a lot of fights, about stuff, and they're glossed over, in the movie, but they were ongoing and intense.
Yeah, I know. I picked that up in the film, and I always love the stories that, like you and other recording artists and songwriters talk about being in the studio and the stories that happen to get these songs done. And y'all were having a problem trying to find that special sound, that special vibe for American Pie. But then you brought in a
Yeah,
gentleman, Paul Griffin,
that's
to
right.
play piano, and then it just opened up the whole song into a
Well,
new area.
Ed Freeman did that. I didn't know Paul Griffin from Adam. Ed Freeman brought him in at the last minute, and he just wailed because he was listening to my acoustic guitar in his earphones, and I'm pounding that thing. I'm a pretty good finger picker, and I'm a good acoustic guitar player, rhythm player. I drive my whole group, It's what I do. And he just jumped all over that thing, and suddenly everybody had a groove they could play on, but they didn't know what the groove was. Like I said in the movie, it sounded like a polka for about 2 weeks. I said, "This is a disaster." I went. I wasn't holding back. I was really scared that we were going to end up going in the studio and making a terrible recording. So he really, and I'm so glad this story is in this movie because he saved that record, and I want him to get that credit that he deserves.
Well,
So
Don,
I'm really happy about that.
how frustrating was it you to be in that studio? You know the essence of this song. You want it done right. Um, what was, you said there was a lot of arguments and going back and forth with the producer on getting it right. Was it hard for you to convey the message or the vibe you were wanting, but he just couldn't get it?
Well, here's the thing. I was a man alone, ganged up on by a producer and a bunch of guys in the studio. The producer hired those guys. So these guys are tight, you know? These guys are winking. These guys are saying little things. I'm picking up on this, that there's all this hostility or, subliminal hostility toward who does he think he is type stuff, right? I have to overcome that. After a while, I just look. This is going to be the way I want it. It's my record, and you're going to do what I tell you, and I don't care whether you like it or not. So once again, Don McLean is difficult, but you just don't realize that it used to be so simple. If you were a pop singer, let's say you were anybody on Capitol Records, you'd go in, they'd present you with Nat Cole, right? He'd choose his material from a lot of new songs that were being written, maybe something you heard somewhere. He'd go in, have a Dave Cavanaugh, one of those Capitol producers, would be there. Wonderful. He'd have Billy May, or he'd have Gordon Jenkins, or whatever. Arrangements would be written. He goes in and does the session, and that's it. They make a beautiful record. They take a picture. When we came along in the 60s, we were supposedly anti-establishment, and establishment music was anything that had to do with the system, meaning the studio system. And that's how they made records, and that's how they made films, with the studio system, which worked very well. And so we were left on our own to do everything. I go in the studio, I've got to pick the producer, I've got to make the arrangements, I've got to write the songs, I've got to sing the songs. Okay, I've got to make all the suggestions about what I want, what I don't want. It's all on the artist, so it was really much easier before. And I think most of the time you got a better result because I don't, most artists don't know about any of those areas. They don't know how to express themselves. I don't like it, or I don't like what I'm hearing, or what does that mean? They want to hear, decibels and hertz and megahertz and stuff, engineer talk. So it was like I had this sound in my head, and Ed, I think Ed got to it because there's not that much on that record. There are only 5 guys.
Well,
guitar, bass, drums, piano, and some background voices on the chorus.
Well, when Paul Griffin sat down at the piano and started playing, did you and the producer finally look at each other and go,
"Oh yeah,
I think we come to an agreement now. We like this."
Well, we agreed on a lot of things, but we disagreed on a few. But Paul Griffin played like 5 guys. He was playing all over the piano. I mean, he just was rocking and rolling, and he was in church. It was gospel. It was everything, because there's a lot of theology in American Pie. So to have a gospel sound, a churchish sound, along with that stride and that rock and roll thing, oh my God, it was. I mean, Ed really, really deserves to be the producer of that, because he came up with him. Without him, we would have had nothing, honestly.
Yeah, and just to think through all of that hardship, even the arguments, you made music history. And
You ha-
tell us, Don, about the American Pie children's book called The Fable. How did that come to pass?
Again, that is Spencer Proffer. His desire to do this. I think he did one for Graham Nash, Our House, and his wife does these books. And I interviewed with her a few times, and she knew my story and loved the sort of the enchanting story of me as a paper boy discovering this tragedy, and created this Donny Boy character, and had the drawings and everything are very nice, and they're gonna take this all the way. I mean, there's going to be a Vincent book and a Vincent documentary movie. There's going to be several more children's books. There'll be a total of 5, I think. And oh yeah, it's all in the works. The publisher loves the idea, and they're selling books. You can get it on Amazon. It's all out there, all over.
Yeah, and the artwork is absolutely fantastic. I was actually reading through the book, The Fable, and it's a beautiful book. And I think even for people who love music but also have kids, it needs to be in their collection.
Yeah. Well, if they have kids, a lot of times they listen to American Pie. It's like a children's song too.
Well,
To couple that with a book, and then as they grow up, they go on to other things, forget about all that, and then one day they hear that song again and say, "Oh yeah, and now what's that about?" And then you might want to ask some questions about what happened in America in the 1960s that still haven't been answered.
yeah,
You know, so
yeah.
it's a good thing.
And I know that back in especially the late '60s, America was definitely divided at that time, and America's divided now. And I think
Very
that's
much
one of the
so.
reasons why American Pie is the song that is forever timeless. And even, ladies and gentlemen, if you have never heard the song American Pie, well, you need to because it is a part of American history. And
I
once you listen
I
to it, you'll
think
get
it's
it.
I think the movie is going to be a nice thing for America at this point in time, and a reacquaintance with the song will be helpful, because we're all Americans. We all obey the Constitution and we follow the laws, and nobody says you have to like everybody, but you obey the law.
Yeah. And I could completely agree with that, Don. Now, how has the 50th anniversary American Pie World Tour going?
Well, we're almost at the end of the American run. We've done about 40 shows in as many cities. It started off at the Surf Ballroom in February 3rd. And then on the 8th or 9th of September, we have to fly over to England and start a European leg, which is going to last 2.5 months. And I'm really looking forward to that. I've done many, many tours of this particular part of the world, and it's always been a lot of fun. And it's, different food, different people, different, different thing, and I enjoy it.
Don, we are having a Elvis Week TV special coming up, and I know that Elvis Presley recorded your song, And I Love You So. What did that mean to you to have the King of Rock and Roll record it, and he also sang it in every concert until he passed in 1977?
I could tell you a lot about Elvis Presley because I knew the Jordanaires very well. They were on a lot of my songs. They were on Crying, they were on Castles in the Air, they were on Since I Don't Have You. We made 2 albums together that had hits on them, and then I brought them to England, and we did a BBC television special there with them, and I brought them to Carnegie Hall several times as well, and sang Thanksgiving with them. So I loved them all and knew them as well as you can know anybody like that. And they were, you could really realize that Elvis Presley was a dear boy. He really was. He was a very good-hearted person, but later on they stayed away from him because they told me that he was around some evil people, and they don't like evil. The Jordanaires were very good Christian men, and they didn't like it. And so they said, no, we can't sing with you anymore. And I think this is when, you know, he went down that bad road, with, one thing, Gordon Stoker, I mean, this is a simple sentence I'm going to say, but he said, you couldn't tell the Presleys nothing. That's what he said to me. And it makes sense, they know what they're doing, and well, they did, but he only lasted till he was 42.
Yeah, very much so. And but yeah, to sing with the Jordanaires, I mean, that is extremely special. I mean, one of the best background groups or best quartets on the planet.
Yeah, and Neil Matthews really wrote all those arrangements. Whatever those arrangements are, like "Treat Me Nice," any of those songs. Those are Neil's arrangements. And I have 4 hours of me and the Jordanaires rehearsing for Carnegie Hall. I've got 4 hours of us talking and singing songs, and they're in their work clothes. They're not dressed up, and I'm you know, we're in my little apartment there back in Garrison, New York, where I used to live. I used to have a little apartment over stables where I had my horses. And we had a very good show. And we went over probably, I don't know, 30 songs or more. They had arrangements for everything. And so that's all I'm going to release that at some point.
Well, I can't wait to hear that. And Don, many blessings to you and your world tour and the continued timeless success for American Pie. And I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you. Your name is Ward Bond.
Yes.
And you know Ward Bond, don't you? The
Yes, I
actor.
do. Yes, I do.
Best,
One of John
best,
Wayne's closest friends.
That's right. And he's in so many movies. He's in Wonderful Life. He's in even the
Wagon Train.
oh yes, that was the when those people ended up going on television, it was usually just because they needed a steady job. They didn't really like TV. They were movie actors, but he was something else. I'll tell you one quick thing. There's this lady who was in one of John Wayne's movies. He always had a beautiful woman in the movie. So they would stay out in the middle, like Sedona, Arizona, or someplace, you know, way out there, and they'd be in like a little low budget motel for like 3 months. And so this lady had her room, and next to her room was this room where Wayne and Ward Bond and John Ford and 2 or 3 others would get in there and they'd play cards. And she said they would curse all night long and keep her up. She couldn't get any sleep. Can you imagine letting all
Oh,
that tension off in that room, that smoke and all that used? No.
there's a lot of testosterone in that room.
Oh, you better believe it. I'm a Western aficionado, shall we say. I go even further than that. I mean, I have whole libraries on Western movies, and I go back to Tom Mix and Buck Jones and Hoot Gibson and the silent era, even William S. Hart. I love that stuff. And one of the interesting things about how America has changed is they just can't make a decent Western anymore. The last one was The Unforgiven that Clint Eastwood did. That was the last really good Western, I think. And even that had a certain amount of profanity in it, which cowboys were usually pretty good Christian men. They didn't curse. They were sort of serious Christian type guys. And
Yeah,
so they have to
I
throw
agree
that
that.
in there. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes when I watch the modern day westerns and there's so much cussing in it, I'm thinking, did they really talk like that back then? And you bring up the good point. I mean, a lot of people back then, it was church on Sunday.
Well, one of the things an old timer said, who'd been around then in the 1930s, they interviewed him. He said everybody was real respectful because everybody was armed. You didn't want to cross a guy, because he could get hurt.
That's right. Well, Don, again, thank you so much for being on the program. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, the legend, the icon, the American musical storyteller, Don McLean. And ladies and gentlemen, the film documentary, The Day the Music Died, is streaming right now on Paramount Plus. So make sure you check it out, as it's one of the best music documentaries ever filmed. Head over to donmclean.com for all of Don's music and tour dates. And remember, what do I always say? We buy the music. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Okay, Ward, thank you.
Hey, thank you.